ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cracked with Siobhan Harris. Today, I'm joined by Wzorek Earl of Szklo Glass. She's known for her modern and minimal glass and mirror work, but her life is anything but minimal. Juggling motherhood with 3 homeschooled kids, you heard me right, 3 homeschooled kids, and being the primary breadwinner in her family is a feat to behold that I couldn't wait to dig into with her. She also shares a tip with us on working with mirrors and shows us how bad PR can be oh so good. Join me as I crack it all wide open. Hi, Lauren.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for asking me. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm just going to get right to the point.
Oh, okay.
How do you say this?
Great.
Is it
Yeah,
Szklo? How do you say it?
Szklo. I say Szklo.
Szklo.
Yes, and that is a Polish word, and it means glass in Polish.
Okay.
So,
are you Polish?
Yeah. Yes, my dad is full Polish, and so I'm half. So yeah, but the technical way of not the technical. The real way of saying Szklo in Polish is Szkło, but my dad didn't speak Polish in the home, and so I don't know Polish either. So we just like to Americanize it.
So Szklo, is it so with the Polish way? It's just with a little bit more of a W in there, right? It's like a Szkło.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Szkło. Yeah.
Right.
If I'm saying it right, I don't even know if I'm saying it technically right. So, but,
oh my gosh, please, all of our Polish listeners, please don't send mean emails to us.
I've gotten some. It's funny because I think one time someone said, well, that's just, if you could say it correctly, it was a different word. It was actually my maiden name. So my maiden name, is Polish. And I was like, no, it's okay. My parent, my dad and his parents said it the way I say it. So I think we're good. When they came over to the US, the United States, they kind of wanted to Americanize,
and that's not an uncommon thing.
No. And it was surprising. I just learned about this not that long ago from my dad, is that so he lived in Chicago when his grandpa moved to the US from Poland. They settled in Chicago, so that's where he grew up and everything. And there's kind of interesting. It's a very, very large Polish community in Chicago. Mm-hmm. It's the second largest other than Warsaw. So, I just found out he was like, oh, actually, well, we were the Polish community that wanted to be, to blend in with America, and be American. And then there was another group of Polish community that was like, no, we, very Polish, speak Polish, so I didn't know there's a divide of, Polish communities in that city.
Oh, interesting.
When he was growing up. So kind of funny.
Yeah. I wonder if that's common with like other nationalities that come here as well.
That'd be very interesting.
I know.
It'd be very interesting to hear all the stories.
Is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you live in Las Vegas now, but are you from Vegas?
No, I'm not. I grew up in San Diego. I grew up I was born in Georgia, but I moved. I don't know Georgia because Augusta, Georgia is where I was born, but I moved when I was 1, and then lived in Chicago until I was about 8, and then San Diego. So San Diego is home because that's where I remember everything. All my friends and my parents are still there. So
yeah. What part of Chicago?
Suburbs. It was Wheeling, but it's like Arlington Heights area.
Okay.
So suburbs area outside Chicago.
Okay. So, I'm originally from the Chicago area as well.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
I know. Well, I don't, it's like kind of like your Georgia thing where I don't feel like I identify with Chicago necessarily, but I did spend, my parents were both from the Chicago area and that's where they met. And then I moved to Northern Illinois and then to St. Louis and then on and on. So, but yes, I do have a little bit of,
cool.
History with Chicago as well.
History, Chicago.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
Love it.
So you went to college in San Diego, is that right?
I did a semester at a community college.
Okay.
Just for 1 semester, nothing big. There the joke was it was like your 13th year of high school.
Right.
But it was good. And it was funny now. Just thought of it. I wanted to take a glassblowing class there at this community college, but I needed some prerequisites to get there. So I didn't end up doing it, which was which was okay, but still want to try my hand at it.
So if you only took one semester of college, did you kind of move into working right away?
So confusing. Sorry, I should back up. So I did a semester in San Diego, and at the same time, right out of high school, I started working for a stained glass shop there. I had my mom had a friend, so it was a connection. She said, "Well, why doesn't she apply for this place?" Because she knew I liked art and my everything I wanted to do, and in my what I desired to do was everything art. So she's like, why doesn't she try this? So I applied and got the job and worked at a stained glass shop there. And it was a very now knowing it was a very simple type of setup. So they would do stained glass windows for home builders to upgrade for their home. So if a buyer of a home said, "Oh, I want to," they give options. You can put a stained glass window in your transom, your side light, and then they would come to us and we'd make it. So it was very repetitive type of designs with a simple bevel in the middle and whatnot. So that's how I got into it. But then after 6 months, some friends and I moved up to Utah to go to school there, and was just planning on doing all my schooling there. So I went to college there for a little bit at what is now UVU. It's Utah Valley University. At the time, it was a state college, but and so I was doing that, and that's where I kind of ended, because I ended up working at a stained glass shop up in Utah. Because when I moved up there, I was like, well, I might as well try to find the same line of work. If I already know what I'm doing. And it's funny, I was in between when I was looking for a job. I had applied for the stained glass shop, and they offered it to me. And at the same time, my sister had set me up with an opportunity to work for a dental lab, it would be like making the teeth molds and stuff. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember. I'll have to ask her again. But I was in between the two. I was like, no, I'm going to go for the glass one. So I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
So it worked out. So I was working there part-time while going to school, and then ended up just doing it full time. I got to a point in school where I was having a hard time knowing where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I kind of just took a step back, and I was like, I don't want to pump anymore. I didn't want to put any money into the school, into schooling, unless I knew what I wanted to do. And so I said, let me take a step back. Let me just work full time, because I loved what I was doing anyways. And I'm happy I did it. So I just ended up working full time at the stained glass shop. And that's, I worked there in the end about 4 years before I moved away, but that's where I met my husband. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So his uncle owns that stained glass shop. So his uncle and his cousins all worked there. So I knew his uncle and cousins before I knew him.
Oh my gosh. Were they really excited when you guys started dating? Were they like,
I don't know. I don't remember if they said they're excited. I remember, it was funny. We were talking about this not that long ago too. We were talking about how we kind of kept it, like him and I kept it a little bit of a secret for a little bit, as long as we could before they found out. So after that, lunch breaks we couldn't take long lunch breaks and whatnot.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, no, yeah, they're excited. Sorry, at the moment, I don't remember when they found out, but now, yes, it's great having them as family. So,
and it's all in the family. They understand what you do.
All in the family.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, how long ago was that?
Oh gosh. So I started working there about 2014, 15, and then about 4 years. So, oh no, sorry. Hold up. That's I'm longer ago. I'm like, wait, it's longer. 2004, 2005. Oh my goodness. It's so weird. Okay. So probably till about 2009, I worked there.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a while ago. That's so weird.
I know.
It doesn't seem that long ago, but it is.
Doesn't. Did you guys get married pretty quickly?
We did it about a year, and then off and on, and then engagement was close to 8 months. Oh, no. Was it 8 months-ish, a year? No, it's about 8 months, I think. Sorry, I don't really keep track of time on that stuff. It seems so long ago. I don't celebrate those little anniversaries, so I just I don't know.
No, I
But
know my husband and I are the worst in terms of like I right now it's like a running joke and I feel like maybe I have a mental block because it makes it more funny, but we can never remember what our anniversary is. I know it's in November, it's somewhere in the
yeah,
middle. It's like somewhere between like the 14th and the 17th and every year I have to like look at a calendar or look through Instagram, like scroll back to see
yeah.
when did we get married?
When did we, there's plenty of days where we've woken up and someone else has told us happy anniversary and we're like, oh,
Oh shoot,
it's
we should
that
have
we
planned
forgot.
something. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we keep it low key.
So you got married and then you were still in Utah. So did you move? How did you end up moving from Utah to Nevada?
Yeah, so actually, before we got married, my husband moved back to Vegas. So he grew up in Vegas. He was
Okay.
born and raised here. Um, and he moved back to start working for his dad at
Hmm.
his dental practice. And then I was like, I'm ready to do something else, um, and we knew we wanted to be together. So I was like, okay. So I followed and then shortly after got engaged and then we just stayed here. So stayed here for about 7 years. And then my husband got a job opportunity up in Utah. And so we ended up moving back.
Mm.
And by that point we had our two girls and they're little ones. So we moved back up to Utah and we're there for about 4 years and then 4 years and then we moved back, so now we're in Vegas again.
So you had two in Utah and then you moved
So
back
we
to,
had so my two girls were born here in Vegas
okay.
and my oldest was about a little over a year and then my second one was 6 months, and then we moved to Utah and then I had my third there, my boy.
Okay. So you have two girls and a
Yeah,
boy. And how old are they
two
now?
girls and a boy. Esther is 8 and Cece is 6 turning 7 and then Night is 4.
You have two that are in school. And then is the little boy, is he in preschool or is he in kindergarten yet?
No, technically he's preschool, but we homeschool
Oh,
all of our
you
kids.
do?
Yeah, we do.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
How? Oh my gosh. This changes everything. Like that's okay. All right. Um, well, okay. So walk me through a typical day. First of all, is the summertime schedule
Yeah.
different than the school year schedule for you then in terms of your workday?
We try not to make it too different. And actually, usually what we try to do is work through, still do the same schedule with the kids during the summertime.
Okay.
And then come October to January, September to January or December, we try to we try to make that kind of our summer schedule, even though we still want to do school stuff with them, but we try to
Yeah.
ease back on that. And the reason why we did that is because we don't have to stick to a certain timeline, we make that our summer because of holiday season gets so busy to where my husband is now helping me out with all the holiday stuff, all the holiday prep.
Okay. So
So
you're working full time and he
yes,
is hanging with the kids.
yes, he works, he helps me out, but then he's mainly the stay-at-home dad and does their homeschool.
Okay. Does he have
And I
any
feel
history with teaching?
no, no,
No.
no, neither do
I mean,
I. So,
yeah.
but with homeschool, that's the nice thing is that, I mean, gosh, I feel like I wanted to be homeschooled during middle school. And I remember
Mm.
my mom was like, oh my gosh, where do I even start? But now I feel like it's so different from when I was growing up to now. Cause I mean, online sources are just, there's a, there's so many.
Mhm, mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot of
Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of, I mean, if I don't know, I don't homeschool. So in my mind, I'm like, I
I,
can't even imagine taking
and
that on. But
it's not for everybody, right? But like for us, um, because of our situation, I work from home, he can be home. It's like,
yeah,
why not do it? So we
yeah.
love it, but
Relationship wise, was it tough for you and your husband to switch these sort of like American stereotypical gender roles?
not really. But if there was anything, it was mostly on my end. So, um, when we had kind of switched those roles, I kind of was in this, I had a hard time feeling like okay, I need to work full time. And I still felt like I was, not from him, just in general, from people in general. It was hard to communicate with people like, no, this is a full-time gig. I can't be somewhere during the daytime or this and that. So it's just mostly my problem. It wasn't like a big deal, but it wasn't anything on his end. But and luckily, it all kind of naturally happened as far as switching the roles. It wasn't like this big, black and white moment of, okay, this is your job, this is my job, and it just kind of grew naturally. His the last company he was working for in Utah had a large amount of layoffs, and he was part of that, unfortunately. So, well, at the time, unfortunately, but now we're thankful for it. So, but he, during that time, I had the stained glass, the Szklo business started picking up. So before that happened, I was in Utah. I was working for a bookstore. I was doing their window displays up there in Utah at their flagship store. So I was doing these window displays, and so I was doing that a little bit part-time from home, and just to bring in a little extra income, and something creative for me to do. And then it got to this point when I was pregnant with my third, because I just thrive off of doing something creative, something art, related. I was just at this point where I was like, okay, I love being a mom. I've got these two little girls. I'm pregnant with my third, and I felt kind of, weird and selfish, and I felt bad about being like, no, I need a little something more, and because I didn't want any, I didn't want it to feel like I didn't like being a mom or didn't love that, but I also needed something. I felt like I was losing a little bit of my identity as far as a creative person, and so I remember talking to my husband. I was like, okay, could you just I just need this mentally to just, and now I realize anybody needs a little bit of a mental break, something to kind of regroup. And so I could give my kids my full self, and so I was like, okay, just give me like an hour to 2 hours of solo time to do something, for myself. And so I was trying to figure out what that would be and what I wanted to do. And was like, before then I would always play around with, like, I remember when my first daughter was born, I sew her little outfits, and I would sell a few here and there for fun. And I always had little things I would do, just kind of little random projects or things I would make and sell. And it was fun, but nothing I hustled at to try to make a big thing, or I teach like kids, like art, little craft lessons for the holidays or something like that. So anyway, so I got to the point, I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm going to do? What should I learn how to make? What should I, what craft should I pick up? And it wasn't until I was looking for some inspiration and found a picture of a wall hanging of, just geometric shapes hanging on a wall. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I could translate that into like a glass thing, and it doesn't have to be, and it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be a window. I can make it more of an art piece, because thinking about diving back into stained glass, I was always, all the things I did at the stained glass shop where I worked at was all windows, right? So, so it's kind of that transition of, that thinking of like, okay, maybe I can make it into something that is attainable for someone to have in their home. It's something that people would like. So that's when I started playing around with just, really simple shapes, little, wall hanging piece, stained glass wall hanging pieces, and would just, I would sell a few on Etsy, and friends would find out, and family, and then the great thing about the Utah, Salt Lake and Utah County area is they have really great art markets and craft markets up there, where it's great because the community just loves them, and they get really popular and people want to go. So I did, I started with one, and the great thing with those also, it's a pretty low entry fee. And I loved it because you could just leave it there for 2 days. You didn't have to stand there with your stuff. So you could just set up your little booth, leave, come back and pick up whatever, or restock, whatever you wanted to do. So I did that, and I was like, oh, I walked away with a check, and, like, I was surprised that
Mm-hmm.
people wanted to buy as many as they did. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was a lot for me.
Yeah.
And so I did a few of those to kind of, get the ball rolling. And at the same time, the online side started picking up to where now that the online took over doing those,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
markets and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so that was getting busier, and the holiday, all the holiday prep was getting busier. Um, it just happened to be that my husband needed to help me with the stained glass stuff while it was getting busy. And so it just naturally switched the roles of him helping me out and taking care of the kids so I could get some stuff done.
It sounds like your kids have a pretty tight routine during the day, but do you ever have to deal with like kids crying and knocking on the studio door?
All the time.
Yeah.
And that's why that I told him the other day, oh, he was gone with the kids for half the day because now the weather's great during the daytime here. And so they were at the park all day. And I was like, oh, I got a lot more done. I forgot how nice it is when the house is quiet for more than just like, 30 minutes to an hour. Like in the summertime when they go swimming, there's a neighbor lets them use the pool, lets us use the pool. So they would be over every day. And it's like 30 minutes, an hour, and then be back. But when they're gone for a few hours, I'm like, oh, it's nice and quiet.
Yeah.
So, but they do. They'll a lot of just yelling, running around the house, and then opening the door. My little guy will like to open the door and start talking, and I'll be like on the grinder. I'm like, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I can't hear you, and he'll just keep going and talking. I'm like, oh my gosh, so I have to stop and like take my headphones off.
Yes.
But it's sweet. It's sweet. But I'm like, oh my gosh, please.
Yes. My daughter, I think usually when she is not allowed down here, when she really wants to come is while I'm teaching. And we have
Yeah.
some stairs that lead out of my studio, go up to the house, and then there's like a glass door at the top of the stairs. And so every time I'm the only one who can see her, she's like out of the eyesight of where my students sit, but she's like pressed up against the glass, like just like knocking and like, can I come? Like, motioning, asking if she can come down. And she's obsessed. She wants to be down here all the time. And the biggest thing for me is like always yelling at her, you have to have shoes on down here. You can't just walk through here barefoot.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my little guy was like, start like putting his toe, and he's not realizing it. I'm like, you don't have shoes on. You can't just like put your foot in, I try to keep it, I have to keep it kind of strict with them because they'll take it to, they'll just, I have to keep some boundaries.
Yes, exactly. How did COVID affect your business? Especially since, well, I guess actually, you know what? Your kids are home anyway. They're schooling.
I know. So we were super lucky that it was just an easy transition for us. It didn't change much other than just not being able to go anywhere,
Yeah.
because we like to get them outside and stuff. And for the first bit, all the parks were closed. So that was really hard just to be like, oh, so we'd go for hikes up in the Red Rock here and whatnot just to get outside. But yeah, so that was a little bit hard. But as far as business, I was a little nervous at first because that first month when, the news kind of hit everyone about what was really going on. And it wasn't just this big, And so that first month was slow, and I was as far as orders coming in. And so I was like, oh boy, do I need to pivot, or what do I need to plan for, kind of thing, and prepare myself for. So so I did get pretty anxious about that and nervous, but luckily in 2019 I had done a stained glass class for These Hands Collective down in Venice Beach. And so I had done a class, and I had some people that were interested afterwards, like, hey, can I get, where do I get the supplies, the tools? And so it took me a bit of time to be like, okay, no, I really need to put this together. So finally I put a kit together of, one-stop shop for someone who's just like, hey, I just want to get all the supplies I need to get started with that you can't just run to Home Depot and get, right? Because that with the stained glass tools that we use, it's not just go to a home improvement store and grab the tools you need. So so I was like, oh, let me put something together. And luckily I had that put together. And that thing took off because everybody was just looking for something to do at home. And so everybody that was just like, if I have to be here at my house, I'll learn something new, which was really cool that people dove into. So luckily I had that, and so that kept me busy. And then on top of that, I was like, well, let's roll with this. So I made a couple. Oh no, just one glass on glass mosaic kit, something super easy that people can do at home. So I put that together. And because of that whole stay at home thing, Free People picked that up and sold it on their site for the holidays, because they knew those kits were pretty popular. So luckily, I had those. I wish I had more at the time. Like looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I had more. But things were crazy, so I have to remember, like, I only had so much time for everything. And
Exactly.
so, yeah. And for me, because I'm all online, that also picked up, just because it was crazy, but I know people were bored and they're at home and they're online shopping. So, I mean, even my friends and I were like, okay, like, well, if I have nothing to do, let's buy something that gets delivered to your house. So,
Right.
so for me, I saw major blessings, but at the beginning I was pretty nervous and stuff. So I just tried to write it as long as I could on that
I'm
one.
really glad that you brought up those supply kits, because I think that those were so smart. And I wanted to highlight that and plug that, because, especially for beginners, because there's a lot of beginner stained glass artists who are listening to this podcast. Um, it really is, but you're right. Having a one stop shop, having like a box be delivered to your house with a project and with all the supplies in it is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and this one is just all the tools. I still need to. It's something I have in the back of my mind to do, is do more, some glass kits to go along with it. So you can add on some glass or whatnot. But yeah, so it's just those tools, because you can go to, there's other places that sell, or local stores that will sell those, you know, those tools or supplies that you need. But
Hmm.
I was just like, oh, I figured, why not just provide it and see if, people, same thing, don't want to have to go through and pick out every single little thing. Just get a box full ready for them to
Well, when
get
you go to a
started.
stained glass store, or really with any of this stuff, it can be overwhelming how
Yeah,
many different kinds of soldering irons there are, and how many different kinds of flux, and et
yeah.
cetera, et cetera. So having somebody who has a lot of experience pick this out for you, I think is very helpful. And do they, do you focus more on lead or with copper with these kits?
So I provide both, because initially I'm trying to think if I initially just did a lead kit or a foil kit. I think initially I just did a lead kit, and then I brought on a foil kit. I need to double check on that. I honestly can't remember, but I provide both options. So I have a lead kit, foil kit, and there's about 3 different tools for each that have to be, there's the staple of all those tools that you use for either or, and then there's about 3 for each that are different than the other. So,
Okay.
but and those kits too are the difference with my kits, maybe than maybe some other ones you find online, is the tools in those kits are the ones that I use. It's a little tough, because some people are like, well, this is a lot more expensive than some other starter kits. I'm like, well, that's just because the tools I use are ones that,
Mm-hmm.
are costly.
Mm-hmm.
So on some of them, not all, but the ones that, yeah. So all those ones that I put in the kit are the ones I use on a daily. So yeah.
And guys, these are available on Lauren's website, which is
Scrolglass.com.
great. And I'll also include a link in the show notes. So
Okay.
check that out
Wonderful.
if you are interested in purchasing or taking a look at those after you listen to this episode. So, so smart. You have your direct to consumer, you have your pieces that you sell on your website, the glass pieces. You make animals, mirrors, organizers, which are so cute.
Oh, thank you.
Patterns, you have some patterns that you sell as well.
Huh.
The supply kits, you do wholesale, Free People, and then you're also on West Elm.
Yeah, so Free People was like a short-term thing that just did they did a set amount for that holiday season.
Okay.
And then yeah, but West Elm is an ongoing thing that I've been doing for a couple years. So they reached out to me and asked if I want to be a part of their local program, which is amazing, because they have you can go on their page and look at their local. It's called local, but it's all the artists from across the country that hand make or or making their own,
Mm-hmm.
items. So it's really cool to see, and it's a great opportunity. So I've been fortunate to be a part of that.
That's amazing. Do you
Yeah.
have other stockists?
No, I am. That's my own fault. I'm really bad at keeping up with that. People have reached out and I'll give them one order, initial, and I'm just terrible about checking up on it and seeing if they need more on that. Just because the online direct orders just keep me busy enough, So I'm just
Yeah,
not good about that part.
that part is
So
harder.
it takes extra, time and effort that I'm just like, oh my goodness, I get overwhelmed easily. So
Right,
like, yeah.
right. You have a different product than I do in the sense that you make the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
How is that tedium for you? Do you have a hard time do you have a hard time not getting bored making the same thing over and over?
So initially when I started doing that, I thought, I'm like, oh no, I might be ruining this for myself, I might hate what I end up doing.
Mm-hmm.
And because I do get bored of something, but luckily for this, I think because I know someone has ordered it and they want it, I know that I have to deliver that for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, it doesn't get too redundant like I thought it would initially when I first started doing it. And when I started with Sklo Glass in the beginning, that first year phase,
Mm-hmm.
I brought in mirror because I knew I wanted to be able to, because it got pretty time consuming to take pictures of each little piece I was making and post it on
Mm-hmm.
Etsy, and then it'd be gone. I was just like, oh my goodness. So I was like, you know what? I need something that can just sit there. That don't have to be, um, it wouldn't have to take up too much of my time. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, let me, what's something I could put on there that I wouldn't have to take a picture of every single time because it's different. And I was like, let me start with mirror. So that's why I started incorporating mirror, because I'm like, well, mirror is mirror. It doesn't change, you know what you're going to
Mm-hmm.
get. So that's when I started doing that. And then when those orders started coming in, I was like, oh no, am I going to burn out? Burn myself out on this. But luckily it hasn't. And it's worked out really well. And there are certain pieces that I've retired because of that. I got really tired of making it. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of is a piece by piece thing, but it takes a lot for me to be like, I'm done.
Right.
so there's been a couple where I'm like, I'm not making this anymore.
Mm-hmm. And you
So
do commissions as well.
yeah, I do. And that's the fun part, is a lot of my commissions have evolved into some pieces that have been my top sellers. Cause then I'm like, well, I can make this again. So I'll keep it on,
Mm-hmm.
listed on my site. One of them has been my stained glass humpback whale that's on a mirror. And that was a friend looking for a gift for one of their friends. And it ended up, I was like, well, I like this a lot. I like how it
Mm-hmm.
turned out. And that's the thing too. I don't think I would have thought of it. I don't think I would have been pushed to do it on my own without
Mm-hmm.
that nudge from someone else. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is great. And I really liked how it turned out. And so I was like, let's go ahead and list it on my site, and ended up being quite a popular piece. It was one that I was featured on, Etsy, and did a little video about the making of it. But yeah, people, and it's always cool to hear people's stories of, some customers will talk about why they purchased that. And some are
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I live, in the West Coast, and I see humpback whales, or something like that, or Alaska. And so it's cool to hear their stories of why they purchased it.
I love that.
Yeah,
So you do work with mirrors quite a bit. That's one of your most popular, I would say, themes in your work.
it is. Yeah, it's definitely turned into mirrors, is my the one that people really gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did a little question on Instagram and I asked people if they had anything that they wanted me to ask you specifically.
Okay.
And at moody_light_glass asked if you had any tips on working with mirror.
Yeah. So my probably the biggest tip I would give someone is make sure when you're cutting mirror is to always seal the edges.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that is not usually taught or talked about as much. And so you always want to seal those edges because you can always get that that rot edge if you don't seal it off. So I used a spray or a rub-on mirror sealant, and you can find those online if you just search for mirror edge sealant. And or I've done it I did it in the beginning because I didn't have all the supplies that I needed, the tools, but I would use, someone had talked about using clear nail polish. So you could do that if you are in a pickle and there's no way for you to get it. Just takes a little bit longer and a little more time consuming, but I've heard it's you can use that. So that's an option.
At what point in the process do you apply your sealant?
After I'm done cutting and grinding if needed. And then I go ahead and clean it off really well. You want to make sure there's no oil on the edges because then it has a chance of just staying in that spot and not actually, then the sealant wouldn't do any good. So you just want to make sure any debris and oils around the back and the edge are wiped clean and really well. So then, and then just go ahead and then seal the edges. Yeah.
So you just lay the mirror down flat with the mirror side down, and you
mirror
just spray.
Side down. Yep. And I just do the edges. And I have a table. So I have my work table behind me, but then I also have another table. And this is something I took from working at the stained glass shop that I did for a long time, is have a carpeted table, and that's better for the mirror and whatnot. So you don't, and clear pieces. So you have a less of a chance, or it's less risky of getting it scratched. So just make sure it's always brushed clean, and no little, pieces here and there that could risk getting it scratched. So, yeah.
So I want to get into your nativity sets for just a second, because you have a couple different kinds. You have your freestanding ones, and then you have a wooden one, and then you also have an enamel version, right?
Yeah, that's a new one.
So a couple people, let's see, at Rain Shadow Glass and at Meredith.Caspel, they both wanted to know, how did you come up with the idea of these nativities and what inspired them? And I would like to add to that question. They're beautiful. And you also make these modern Salt Lake City temple, these wall hangings.
Yeah.
This stands out to me because I think a lot of modern stained glass artists shy away from the organized religion theme of work. What is your relationship with these pieces? And I'm kind of curious what your relationship is with the spirituality of it as well.
Yeah, great questions. Do you want me to start with the nativity one and
No,
it's okay. I just said get so to all
much. Yes. Okay. So first, let's answer what was the inspiration, which might also answer my other questions, but what was the inspiration behind the nativity set?
Yeah, so the nativity set, which the first thing I designed was just the stable Mary Joseph baby as a wall hanging / ornament, but the ornament was way too heavy. I mean, you'd have to have a thick tree to be able to hold it up. But that was the first thing I had designed. And the reason why I started with that was because for me, I always like to push, not push the boundary, that kind of sounds silly, but I always liked experimenting early on with different ways of how to, what can I make? What could I do? And for me, I love collecting nativities. I just not like I have a crazy amount, but when I see one I really like, or it's from a different country, I love that. So, so when Christmas time was coming closer, I was like, well, how could I do my own version, without being a lot like the other ones you see out there. Because with glass too, I mean, a little bit limited on how you can do it without getting too detailed and getting really complicated. So, so I had kind of, I played around with the idea of, and a lot of ones that you see, if you were to just kind of, I remember searching just like stained glass nativity, and a lot of them were, if they were simplified, it still had a head, like wire for arms, things like that. So it's still trying to embody like a human figure, an actual human figure. And I was like, I didn't want to do the same thing. I wanted to create something else. That's always been my thing, is I don't want it to look like someone else's work. And so, um, I remember it took 2 or 3 days of me just sketching ideas over and over again, and just trying to get something that I was like, okay, I can make this into glass, and I like it myself. And so I just kept playing with it, and finally the shapes got simpler and simpler than what I initially was thinking of. And what you see today, those shapes, those really simplified shapes, is what I ended up being like, oh, this makes sense to me. Aesthetically, it looks good. It looked balanced. And so that's where I, designed that nativity. It was just starting with, how can I make my own nativity? I don't want it to be like others. And then just working really hard on getting my own idea on paper and that design. So once I had the design, I was like, okay, let's go ahead, and I'm going to do it out of glass. And I started with just that centerpiece design. And then the next year, I think someone had reached out, I believe so. They had asked, oh, can you do a set? Can you do the full set? And so I was like, well, let me go back to the drawing board and do it again. So same thing. I was like, okay, how can I represent these figures, in my design? And that's what I came up with. And it wasn't, and that year, or was it the year before? I believe it was the year before. My sister-in-law had went to Barcelona on a trip, and she, it was during the holiday season there, and bought me a stained glass nativity that was in a wood base, but it was like the same thing where it was foiled, and it was like, the circle marble for the head and stuff, and so I was like, oh, okay. So I like that it was in a wood stand, because that's why she bought it from me. She's like, I thought you'd like that it's a standing piece. I thought it was something different. And so that's what I ended up using for the next year when I made the full set, was how can I put this in a wood stand like that one, but make my own version. And luckily for me, my husband's a woodworker. So I was like, hey, can you make these wood stands for me for my own design and customize it for myself? And so he created those, and yeah, and it worked out. I loved it. And I was really happy to hear that other people have enjoyed it also.
They're beautiful. I love that you
Oh,
use
thank you.
these shapes, as it's a little bit more symbolic, than, it's not so on the nose in terms of having like
Yeah.
a figure. They're beautiful.
Which is, thank you. And it's so funny because I love hearing all like what different people think of it, but I have heard the other side, like, this isn't a nativity. I'm like, no, I get it. It takes, you know what I mean? So, everybody's got a different taste in things, and it's not some people's taste, but I love that so far. It seems like a lot of people like it. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I like them. Those people can kick rocks. All right, moving on.
That's hilarious. But I think it still makes me laugh. Like, it's not like I don't get annoyed by it at all. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Not everything has to be so literal,
No. So, and I think, last year, it was really funny. Did you see that it got really repetitive, but someone had tweeted about modern or minimalist nativities and kind of made a joke about it.
No.
And there was 4 different ones, and mine was a part of it. And it was kind of like making this, like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was really funny. And she's like, oh, please, kind of like, oh my gosh, these minimalist nativities are ridiculous. And then she made another tweet, I guess, and was like, oh, actually, I like this. The glass one is actually pretty nice or whatever, but it's expensive or something like that. So, but it was just I don't know how Twitter works. I'm not on there. I don't really get it. I've got enough with Instagram to handle, so I'm good. But it was funny because she wasn't like I don't even know if like there's popular people on Twitter or any status, but it got viral, I guess, and it just blew up. And so it reached a lot of people last year.
You probably sold so many nativities from that negative tweet,
Oh, it was perfect PR. It was the best thing. So this year, let's hope for some more.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yes. My other part two of that question, since I sent you
Oh,
all
yeah.
of it at the same time, is that the Salt Lake City temples?
Yes. So that is something I did very early on. I was thinking it's that first year I was doing Skull Glass before the market. So because I was in Utah, and my faith and a lot of people in Utah are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Mm-hmm.
And that is our temple there at Salt Lake, which is a very iconic temple for everybody, who knows our faith, knows Salt Lake Temple is usually one that represents, our faith
Mm-hmm.
a lot, or has seen a lot. So I knew, I was like, well, how can I make, a minimalist design of it, and can it work? And so I did, and I made it specifically to start selling at the markets, and it did
Mm-hmm.
well there because there was a market for, that type of piece there. And so it's on my site. It's funny, I actually removed it a month ago or so, and because I was like, oh, I don't get that many orders of it, it's fine. And then I removed it, and someone's like, do you not sell it anymore? I wanted to buy one. I was like, oh, okay. So I leave it up on my site now, just in case someone wants to get it, because they like it for gifts or wedding gifts and things like that. So
That would make a really nice wedding gift. And again, I think that a lot of modern stained glass artists do shy away from having religion be a part of their work. So is your
yeah.
faith, is that a pretty big part of your life?
Yeah, it is. It's not something I, usually like, I'm not loud about, but it is. And
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, maybe compared to others, yeah, being Christian and our faith is, yeah, it's a huge part of our lives, and
Mm-hmm.
I find joy in it, and it makes me happy and peace. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's great.
yeah.
We touched on this a little bit, but you said that Instagram is the only social media that you do. You're not about the Twitter. Is that right?
I just never got into it. I remember
Yeah.
early on trying, I was like, I didn't get it. And even when the stuff was happening, I was like checking it out. I was like, I don't know. I'm actually okay. I'm glad I was never on it, because now seeing people who, say things here and there and regret what they say, I'm like, I'm glad I never was on there and
Mm,
said something really dumb. So
yeah, it is a
I'm okay
very
staying off of it.
incriminating. Yeah, it's an incriminating
Yeah.
paper trail. Yeah.
Yes, I'm okay. Shying away from it.
Do you like Instagram?
Instagram, I like it. I mean, it's a little more pressure than what it used to be. I was just thinking like about how, when it first started, it was all about, initially when it started, it was just taking a photo and pasting it on there with like,
Mm-hmm.
a Nashville filter and like all those original filters you got on there, and
Yes.
then it turned into, very, I loved when it turned into like, the very artistic way of taking photos, and anybody could be their own photographer, sort
Mm-hmm.
of, in a sense. I'm not going to say, but it's like you could kind of find a way to make a pretty picture into a picture into a square look pretty and stuff. And now it feels like there's a bit more pressure because the videos and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just more pressure. But so that gets a little hard, and that whole aspect of trying to keep up with everybody and is something I have to remind myself not to. At one point I had to kind of take a break from looking at other stained glass artists and my friends, what they were doing, because I was like, oh, I'm not doing any, like, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when orders are coming in and I'm busy, it's that repetitive thing I'm making. So that time left for me doing my own creative piece kind of has to sits uh, set back, so I have
Mm-hmm.
to. So that part got a little hard at times where I'm like, oh man, I really want to create something. I didn't have the energy left to do it. So
Yes,
it
it
gets a
is.
little difficult.
It's another full-time artistic job to create good content for social media. I am not very good at it. I barely ever post, but
Yeah.
you have a very well edited Instagram. Your photos
Oh,
and your videos are all very well done. Do you do all that yourself?
yeah, all myself.
Nice work.
Oh, thank you. That was nice of you. I appreciate that. I've had before we moved from Utah, I had a close friend, Haley Nord. She's a great photographer, and she came and took pictures of. I needed it to send it off to Etsy needed some photos of me and doing my work. And so I asked her if she'd take pictures, and she did a great job. And I still use those photos. I need to get new one. I need to ask her to get some new photos.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the only time that I can think of that I had someone else do some photography work for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Whew. Well, you're doing it, and we're gearing up. We're getting ready for holiday season. It's right around the corner.
I know. Yes. And I've got a new nativity colorway coming out. So every year now. Yeah, every year. So I've got, my original colorway, my original nativity that I started with, the pastel colors. And then the year after, I did that premium nativity that has the brass bars for the stable rather than the glass stable. And that one I bring back every year. I just do a smaller run. I don't do as many. I don't prep as many of those as I do the original colorway. And then I feel like this is going to be at least my second or third time coming out with a very small run of just like a fun new colorway. So I think that's going to be a tradition for me, is do a very small run of just a fun colorway. So I think this year I'm going to call it like my limited edition colorway, what it is, and just have that available. So it'll be just that year, and then next year it'll be something else. So,
that's a really good idea.
But I'm excited for this one. It's got, do you want me to give you a sneak peek? Maybe I'll be listed by the time it's on here.
Yes.
I've got it. I need to take photos, but the lighting's been kind of not great in the morning for me.
And so just a reminder to the listeners who are just listening, please go over to the YouTube channel so they can see this. Yeah, no, this is good. People
is this okay?
Yeah.
I can describe as I'm showing it. So the base, my husband, for this kind of stuff, it's fun because we get to play around with the different wood types. And so this base is a, oh my goodness, I'm going to blank on it. I need to look it up. Sorry. I should have asked him before. It's a birch, or it's a maple. It's a maple, but it's not spotted maple. I'm going to butcher that. Sorry, guys. I'll ask him later, but it's got this, so it's kind of got these little, it's easier to see in the camera than in person sometimes. It's got these little natural lines in the wood.
Yeah.
And kind of got the spotted. So then the stable is glass, but this time it's a tan bronze, but it's got an iridescent side to it. So I'm facing that forward. And then Mary and Joseph are these, I'm going to call them earth tones, because I really was digging the earth tones this year. So more of a chestnut and what you call it, like a tan piece, I guess you could say. So I'll have to describe those colors better. The shepherd with the sheep, shepherd, it still got the same brass staff, but the shepherd shape is going to be this kind of, it's almost like an olive brown tone. And then the sheep itself has got this clear texture with these white opaque spots in it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So pretty. Oh, I feel
that. Oh, go ahead. What was that?
I feel so honored that you're premiering your limited edition colorway with us today.
I gotta do it at some point. And then the wise men I kept as a smooth gloss finish, but it's got, we've got three colors. It's the steel blue, the olive green, and a gray. But this one's going to be those translucent colors.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. So, but if you're listening, you can I'm sure by that point I'll have them up listed on the site, and there's going to be a small run of those for this year.
Check them out on Instagram if you don't see it here first.
Sure.
I want to ask another question from somebody from Instagram at flat.glass. This is okay. Now we're going to take a total left turn. We're going to change gears.
Okay.
How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
How would you best describe imposter syndrome? Because I feel like, because I'm trying to think, is it like when you think that you're not who you really are? Is that the best way to describe that?
To me, it's kind of like when somebody asks me what I do for a living, and I'm like, I'm a stained glass artist, or I'm an artist. And then in my mind, all of the voices in my head that are negative and judgmental are like, no, you're not. You're not a good artist. You're faking it right now. You're not really a stained glass, kind of stepping into who you are and what you represent in your identity?
I feel like I have gotten a lot more comfortable with myself. I think in the beginning when I was like, okay, I'm taking this on, this my Szklo glass business is like my full-time thing. This is what I'm doing. I think in the beginning I probably had a little bit more of that. Now I think I'm just like, whatever. Like take it or leave it kind of thing. And I try not to overthink it too much. So I think for me it was just this idea of like, no, guys, like I am a business owner. I think that was a little hard to grasp that I was this. It was hard I felt like to communicate and to like know like how to say like, oh, because I would tell people like, oh, I make stained glass. They're like, oh, so you do like some crafts? I'm like, oh no, like it's a business. So it was this balance of like, how do I present myself as far as like, no, this is a full-fledged business, not just like I'm doing some cute things once in a while, you know?
Right.
So that was a little hard, but I think it just took time for me. I think it's just a confidence thing, right? So I just need to be more confident in what I was doing, and now I have been better about wording. I think it just helps out if you say, instead of just saying like, oh, I'm a stained glass artist, and it's better. Sometimes it's easier to say, well, I'm an artist who runs a full time,
An empire.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Sure.
That's what I'm
Like
going
a
to start
full
saying.
business. Yeah. So I think describing it as a business first rather than just being like, I make things, like then it comes across a little bit better to who's asking and whatnot. So
Yes. Just
yeah.
trying it on. If you say it enough times, you stop feeling like an imposter.
I think that's just the time thing. I think it comes with time, and then you just gain confidence with that. So yeah.
Time heals all.
It's an interesting question though. I've never been asked that.
What are your future goals? You've come so far in the last few years of running your own business. Where do you want to go from here?
I've felt like I've been unable to experiment like I used to in the early stages. I would just get an idea. I'm like, I got to try this out, even if it, doesn't pan out the way I want it to, just at least try it. So, I want to try to experiment more with the execution of stained glass and mirrors and whatnot. So, almost, I would love to try to do much larger scale pieces. Because I feel like there is just this natural draw to large scale wall art pieces, rather than just the small pieces I make now, the smaller size pieces. So, and I would love to try to make pieces where it's something that it could not be repeated almost. So it's almost like an actual, like an art piece, rather that would take maybe more of a specific customer. So I think branching out like that, because hope in some sense you can kind of get the eyes on you from, architects or interior designers or hotel, people who do hotel design and stuff. So finding some large scale pieces like that or making some large scale pieces like that would be really a nice avenue to try to go down.
Yeah.
But long term, I don't think this is gonna happen, but we'll pretend. I would love to get a water jet.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would be so fun, because there's certain things I'm like, oh, if you could just use a water jet, you could get some amazing pieces cut out.
Yeah. Yeah. Flannery has one. Did you hear that Did you hear episode number 3?
I did, but I didn't get to the end, so it must have been at the end.
I don't remember when she talked about it, but she's got one.
I missed
in the
that
studio.
part too.
Yeah.
Darn. Okay, I'm gonna have to
revisit.
That's cool.
Do you have any favorite artists you'd like to share with us?
Like a general artist, right? Like
the world is your oyster.
Okay. So one of my favorites, that's been around for a little bit, and I kind of shared on my stories a little bit ago about, I have one of his prints. It's Mark, I don't want to mess up his last name, Mark Maggiori, I believe is how you say it. But I don't know how to pronounce his last name very well. But you can see his stuff on Instagram. And he is a painter he's from France, but him and his family live in New Mexico.
Mm.
And he is all about the Southwest art, cowboys and everything. But he's an amazing painter, and I'm
Cool.
always impressed by what he shares. I mean, I'm like, how many paintings I don't know if he has, I'd assume he has multiple paintings going on at the same time, but he is just like cranking them. He's really good. I'm like, he's motivated to get stuff done. But his paintings are amazing. So I love seeing his work, and it's inspiring. And it makes me miss. I used to do painting, and so I'm like, I miss it when I see his stuff.
Oh, I want to see some of your paintings.
Oh, I don't have it. I don't know if you got me. I'm like, I
Well,
don't. They're big. They're out in the house. They're
after
big ones.
this, why don't you send me some photos and I'll put them on the
Okay, sounds
interview
good.
because I'll put them in right now.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, but yeah, he does like cowboys, horses, and I've always been obsessed with horses and used to do a ton of horse paintings and whatnot. So that's what I always
Beautiful.
love to do. Yeah,
Cool.
and then I don't have specific artists, but anytime I see someone who does any type of art installation, I just love. That's something I
Hmm.
used to do. I worked at Anthropology for a little bit and did helped with their window displays.
Mm.
And so I got really into like that art installation idea, and something I want to dive back into. I've in the past month I picked up some supplies of an old for an old art installation we did in Anthropology that the partner and I had like created on our own. Usually that's something usually they give you the type of installation to build out yourself, but this one we
Hmm.
had come up on our own. And so I'm trying to scrounge up the materials and find them again to try to do it. And it's not glass, but I'm like, maybe I can try to figure out putting some glass on it to justify it to be on my page. But
Yeah.
it'd be nice to jump back in that game again.
Window display design is a big deal. Like that's a career all on its own that is taken very seriously.
Yeah, and and definitely with some of those retail stores, it's Bergdorf's and Louis Vuitton, like they're a big deal, those ones.
Big
So
deal. It's like a
yeah.
big reveal every year.
Oh,
We're so close to New York, and so I'm so excited
oh,
to go to the
same.
city this year for the holidays to see all the window displays.
Ah, that's cool. That's so cool. It's a lot of pressure too. It's not easy.
No, no.
No, it's difficult.
There's a couple jobs that I've always been sort of curious about that I feel like if I had another lifetime to live, maybe I'd jump into on a
Yeah,
deeper level. I
and that
think
would,
that that would be super fun. Also,
yeah.
um, cake decorating.
Oh, yeah. There's been some amazing ones where I'm like, it doesn't even look like you should eat it. It looks like an art piece.
I
Those I
know.
love. They're
Yeah.
amazing. And there have been some that did stained glass effects on them. They made it look like a cathedral window, which is amazing.
Oh, I haven't
Uh,
seen that.
this is so funny. It took me back for my wedding. My mother-in-law made we made our own sheet candy, like
Mm-hmm.
so you make your own like sheet candy stuff, and we broke it up and we stick it in the cupcake, so it looked like glass on top of the cupcakes. I'm sure there's people that do that all the time,
Oh, I
but
think I
it's
saw
like
that
it's like
technique.
the
Yeah. I saw
yeah.
that technique for like a Halloween thing. It was like cupcakes where you can do,
Ah,
I think they were like bloody shards of glass or something.
exactly. Yep,
Very different.
exactly. I should do that and that's something I've done on my Instagram. I think, yeah, I've saved them. I've done it a couple times with my kids, my girls. I'll do like a stained glass craft. And that
Mm,
was something we just did for fun. I would show how to make something. That one was the thing we did, the candy sheet. You
mm.
melt the Jolly Ranchers and stuff and lay it out, and it looks like a sheet of glass, and then let them eat it. And then one was just like looked like a stained glass ornament, sort of, for the kids to make. So I need to do some more this year. I should do another one for holiday time, and
How
maybe
old do
have
you
like a
think your kids will be before you'll allow them to do stained glass?
oh, maybe if I think if they're interested, I think 12 would be fine to let them dive into stuff, especially with just practicing cutting. They just need to, that's my thing, is um, practicing each step uh, a lot before they just put it all together. That's the nice thing with when I worked at the stained glass shops.
Mhm.
Um, like the first stained glass shop I worked at in San Diego, I was the glass cutter. So all I did was cut glass and prep those pieces for the person to then build and cut the bevel pieces around and put together. So I was just cutting the glass the whole time. And so that was great practice. And then when I went to the other stained glass shop where I got the bulk of my training, I mean, doing that stuff every day is what really gets you prepared to do it on your own. I was lucky and fortunate enough, whereas I think it's easy now to be like, oh, I'm going to pick up, stained glass, I'll learn it, and I'm just going to put something together and there it is. I'm like, oh no, I think with stained glass, in my opinion, you need to practice each step quite a bit before you can really, get it all together, and feel comfortable with it. So, but yeah, I think I don't know if I've saved. I know I have it saved somewhere. My daughter, it was a couple years ago. I think she was 6. My oldest, yeah, she was cutting I taught her how to cut a piece of glass, but obviously, I'd help her hold the glass cutter, and then she broke it, and it was cute to see her reaction. So,
oh, I bet.
Yeah. So I think just once they're each ready, I think, and they want to, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's true. It is different for every kid too, because I taught at a summer camp last year or this summer. It's not last year. Literally like a month ago, I taught at a summer camp, and I'm already in fall. I'm already
I know.
That was
excited
last year.
for that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I taught 11 to 13-year-olds.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah. As long as their personality, that if you give them like, hey, here's the instructions, this is what you can and can't do. And if they're okay following it, then I think they'll be okay.
Exactly. Final question.
Yeah.
Who would you like to nominate to be on the podcast? And this has to be a stained glass artist.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, okay. A couple I can think of. Janelle Fu is amazing. She's
coming already.
Love. Okay, so you're done. You got her. But she's amazing, and she's been the one of there's a lot of stained glass artists out there that you can reach out to, talk to, and whatnot, and they're all, the ones I talk to are always really nice and sweet and easy to talk to. Janelle's been one that has been really nice to bounce off ideas off of, or if we have questions. She's an easy one for me to reach out to, so she's really great. And I got to meet her. She came to town, oh gosh, was it spring, earlier this year? She was in town, and so she came over, and it was great meeting her in person, which is so funny because we know each other, but not, you know what I mean? You know how that is. You know people, but you don't really know them because you never met them.
Yes.
So that was really awesome to get to meet her, and love her work. And they take great photos of her stuff. Mm-hmm. They do a good job. Mm-hmm. And then Gold Fever Glass, Courtney. Mm-hmm. Love.
Yes, her stuff is amazing.
I'm obsessed with her amoebas.
Her amoebas are really fun.
I drool over those because I'm like, oh, the way she gets the light through those, and the pieces of the beveled pieces she uses, and the thing I love is that you can tell that, for me, I can tell that glass is not your standard run-of-the-mill glass. Do you know what I mean? She's using very nice quality pieces in her in those amoebas. So she pays really good attention to detail on those, and I need to get my hands on one.
I think she's going to be in Neely's book.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, I know she is. She's going to be one of the featured artists. Yeah, so that'll be exciting.
Love Neely too. Who doesn't love Neely though? No one can say anything bad about her.
Nobody doesn't like Neely. Nope.
No. But yeah, so yeah, Courtney she'd be a fun one. And I unfortunately didn't get to meet her. We almost did before the shutdown and everything. They have the Glass Expo here in Las Vegas, and she lives in Reno, and so she was there at the expo, but I was not able to make the day she was there, so we ended up missing each other by a day.
Oh, so, that's a bummer.
Yeah. So, but yeah, maybe there should be a fun meetup if everybody comes the next time they have a glass expo in Vegas. People should come into town.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine if we all converged? And that would be really fun.
That would be really fun. Go for night out
Yes.
on the town. And this isn't someone, because I've, someone that wouldn't probably be someone to interview because they're from another country, but I'd love to give them a shout out if that's okay.
Mhm.
Their name's Vita Vitro is their name.
Okay.
And they were very sweet in reaching out to me a long time ago. They wanted to make something stained glass in a wood stand, and so sweet of them. They reached out and were like, "Is that okay if I do something in a wood stand too?" And I'm like, "It is not my idea. Like, I didn't invent this. Go for it." But it's always really nice when people do that and they're just
It's very
really
thoughtful.
considerate, very thoughtful and considerate. But I have ever since then watched their work, and they've got a small following, but this person's from Russia, and but their work is really good. I really enjoy seeing what they're making.
Are they speaking Russian, or are they, can they
Yes.
speak? They are. Okay.
Well, when they spoke to me, it was English.
Okay.
But I think because of where they're at and what they do, it's all in Russian. But it was funny because my one summer, my brother-in-law was in town, and he speaks Russian and knows Russian. And so I had asked him, because put me in I was tagged in a video of them talking about one of their pieces. I was like, I don't know what they're saying. So I was like, can you translate what they're saying in their video? And I wanted to find out.
What were they saying? What were they talking about
I
you?
can't remember. I think they brought up because they had said like something about the wood base or something like that. So I need to get a full translation on that. I can't remember,
Yes.
but it was really sweet. Yeah.
There's a couple people who have suggested artists, internationally. And I do want to do that more. I just have to figure out. Right now, I'm kind of trying to figure out how to do the English speaking. I want to really feel like I have a flow with this podcast first. And then maybe we'll get in like translators and be able to bring in some more people. But that's going to be like a whole other production aspect that I don't feel ready to take on yet. But I want to. That's my future goal, is getting more of that happening.
You should reach out to this person, because if they message me in English, I bet you they know, but
yeah,
I know it's worth trying.
Yeah, definitely.
And it would be really fun to hear. I think it would be very interesting to hear stained glass artists from other countries, to see how it is there. And like, even sometimes I'm like, how do they get their supplies? And are their supplies different than what we use in the States? And it'd be very, very cool to hear their story.
Absolutely. And I think it's a lot like cooking, where you go into like somebody's kitchen, like you're on some European adventure, and you go into like a kitchen, and you're like, what's this? What is this? And you're trying to figure out what it is, and it's mustard, but it just looks totally different and
different. Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be really cool to hear.
That would be really fun. All right.
But you're doing a great job,
gods, if you're listening. Oh, thank you so much.
Your production is amazing. I'm like, oh, okay. It's not just chit chat.
Thank you, Zoom. I don't. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. This was
thanks for having me.
Yes.
Honor, so
this was a pleasure. I'm a big fan of your work, and
yours as well. Sheesh.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing what you make next.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited. They've got a few things that I'm working on that are not commissioned. It's just me and what I want to do.
Make sure
I'm excited to show.
Keep updating that Instagram, because I'm following along, and I know that all our listeners will be following as well.
Thanks so much. And thanks for everybody for listening. This is great.
Yes, everybody. Thank you so much. Well, have a very productive, wonderful day in the studio today. And I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye. To see more of Lauren's work, her Instagram is @Szklo Glass. That's SZKLOGLASS. And mine is @Runa Glassworks. Thank you so much for listening today. Next week, I'm chatting with, drumroll please, Janelle Fu. Yes, she's been nominated so many times to be on, and she's coming. She's actually making a very special announcement here with us on Cracked, so you don't want to miss it. I'll see you next time.